Hello and welcome to the Dive Season 6, Episode 19. Welcome back from break.
Woo! It was actually so nice to have a break. Not gonna lie.
I've decided we're going to have every other week off.
Every other week.
Sound good?
Yeah.
You guys are a bunch of slackers. I hated it. Yeah. Where was the LCS? I had no fun.
It was the first time since probably you've never had it either, right? I assume, but like first time since I started casting in 2016 where there was actually a week off during season. I've taken weekends off before, but of course you have to watch the games and we have meetings and we have shows. So it was super chill to just like not have to think about anything for a week. I went to Yosemite, I went hiking, I barbecued, I ate way too much food. I slept a lot and played some video games.
The norm is they never give us any holidays off or any vacation, breaks or whatever in the season. It's the season. So that's why when I heard, that's when I heard, because normally it's like, oh, okay, Olive Riot is doing, some vacation, or Olive Riot is going on some trip or whatever, and you're like, oh, that's great, I'll be there on the weekend, at work. But I was shocked to hear that the LCS was actually taking this week off too. I did multiple road trips down to San Diego, Dash's parents, and then to Las Vegas, baby. Woo!
I did nothing.
Mark was making fun of
I was making fun of the amount of money that
for being excited for winning like $100.
I'm not even like, okay, so I was joking about like the grand, and like you have to have like at least $1,000 on the table. But it was just funny hearing Travis when he was talking about, be like, I won big, not like I ended up a little bit, like I think he said like around 150, 250, which is nice.
It was a shitload of money.
It's like, what? Don't get me wrong, like good for you, but it's just like you're stunting on with like your.
It felt big to us, okay? It was fun. We played for like 3 hours, and I didn't
make
lose
it rain
money.
with a single $100 bill.
And to be fair, that's a dub. Like you go to the tables, you nurse your free drinks.
I had never played blackjack.
But I wouldn't say I
before.
was up big. When I'm up $100, especially in Vegas. That's not going that far. That's one buffet.
You go to the club and you're like, hey, I guess you just won big tonight. Everyone's like, how much?
I
can afford 3 drinks.
I thought he had one more. I thought he had actually one more, but
maybe it was 350. But either way, anything but like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to keep having fun.
No, we're just making fun of Travis.
Yeah. Only Travis. If you at home have won 350, brag about it.
If I won $20, I'd be happy to win $20.
You get a scratcher. You're like, hey.
But I just wouldn't say I was up big in Vegas.
I just made so much money off this scratcher.
Are you guys done?
No. Now we are.
Okay. Well,
I didn't do anything, so I have to make fun of the people who did. I literally sat at home.
Did you play some games at least?
No. Genshin Impact.
You just sat. Okay, so you did play some games.
Yeah, but no more than I normally do. It's like 45 minutes a day.
You changed it 45 minutes. What did you do with all your time then? What was on something? You just sat there and contemplated life.
Go eat with Ashley, watch some shows.
Exactly. Yeah, the usual.
Yeah.
Any good shows?
I don't care this much about Mark's vacation, actually. Keep asking more questions.
Yeah, whatever. I watched some TV. I worked on some side projects to use.
Anyways, shit. We got a giant exploded message from our producer. Talk about Players, you idiots. There was a new episode of Players that came out.
Well, he was saying Mark should have said he watched it.
I did.
Did you watch it?
Yeah, I watched every episode when they come out.
Yeah, I've watched it all too. I'm actually really enjoying it. I think it's really funny. It's been really fun to watch, to be honest. I feel like not that many people are watching it, but the people I know who are watching it are really enjoying it.
I think it's a slow starter too. For me, like the beginning episodes, it took a while, but I think the Nightfall episode was my favorite episode overall.
Mm-hmm. I've liked them all. I think Paramount Plus can be a little difficult to get people on it, I guess.
Yeah. It's also not available in all countries. Like my brother want to watch it, some of my friends want to watch it, and they're like, oh, it's not available in Canada. So.
And I think a lot of people don't know what's on Paramount Plus. I'm watching Evil on there because I watched season 1 when it was on Netflix, I think it was, and now it's on Paramount Plus. Evil's pretty good. Survivor's on there if you want to spam some Survivor on Paramount Plus.
You're trying to sell Paramount Plus now for people.
Because you're not just selling players, you're selling a subscription to a service. I'm like, hey, there's other things you can.
There's a free trial though. You should legitimately.
There is a players.
If you're watching this, if you're watching the dive, You probably will like Players. You should check it out.
Yeah.
It's actually really funny.
Yep. All right, we're done.
Also, there was things that went on in the off weekend. Kobe, you were in Vegas. There was the Mr. Beast Ninja show match or whatever you want to call it that went on.
That's actually one of the reasons that we went to Vegas. Is because we were gonna pop in for the big show match, and it was in the arena that we had previously done All Stars in.
Oh, okay.
It was like, I think it was just as cool to watch on stream as to be there in person. So what I'm trying to say is you didn't miss much by not actually going to.
But if you're there in person, you could have got made fun of by that lady who was hosting. Who was making fun of the fans for being from LA. That was weird.
Yeah, I didn't actually even watch the whole thing.
Okay.
We watched some on our phone.
She came out and she's like,
So
she's like, where are you guys from? And they're like, LA. She's like, oh, you like sushi. You like yoga. Oh, you eat kale. You're from LA. I was like, what is happening here? What is going on right now? Why are you making fun of the fans for answering your question?
Well, also, Vegas is 2.5, 3 hours or whatever it is drive from LA. Like, of course, people are going to be from LA there.
And like most of the people that are like in the show match are probably from LA
or Vegas, one of the two. That's it.
Yeah, hosting it and the people that were in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So to be fair, I only watched like a couple of the games.
Anyway,
I tend to tune out. There was some drama though that went down while I was there. Doublelift was talking about how Bjergsen was denied by Rito Games from being able to
I was surprised. I was kind of surprised to hear that, even though there are kind of normally like non-compete clauses or whatever. I was very surprised because seems like a good promo opportunity for League, for the LCS itself. Seems like everybody benefits because it's not during LCS.
Yeah.
Maybe if LCS is going on during it, then you're like, okay, makes sense.
I think all of us agree with that.
Yeah.
And I think there's a potential that even Riot NA agrees with that because Travis on Hotline League had reported about this. He reached out to LCS for a comment, and the comment he got back was, the LCS abided by a policy set across all regions of LoL esports against participation in third-party tournaments in season. And we were speculating on that show about reading between the lines. LCS abided by a policy does not sound like, yep,
Yeah.
we're in line with this. So I think it's pretty unanimous that everyone who heard this is like, we wished Bjergsen could have gone there, but it sounds like it was decided from beyond the scope of just
LCS.
LCS people.
Because of course the people who are making these decisions for LCS want the promotion for LCS as well.
Yeah.
Right. Like they want Bjergsen, who's like, you know, the most followed player in the league, probably maybe the most followed player in Western League of Legends. I don't know.
I'd
like,
have to
as
check
far as,
rec
like,
lists,
Twitter followers
but it's like
and stuff.
up there. Yeah.
But he's one of the you know, faces of League for sure, and has been for a really, really long time. They would love him working, you know, with Mr. Beast, who's like probably the most popular YouTube creator there is right now.
Yeah.
At least arguably. He has almost
Yeah.
100 million followers. Like every video he puts out gets 50 million views, etc. Right? Like he's enormous. So, you know, having that collab is beneficial for LCS for sure. So, yeah, I mean, it sucks that happened. If I was Bjergsen, I would be disappointed, especially because there wasn't anything else going on.
Yeah.
But definitely, like, we all would have wanted that to happen. That's cool for LCS people to be involved.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was some easy news. Everybody agrees would have been cool to have him play.
Hot take. Bjergsen would have ruined the LCS if he went.
Now on to the more controversial, the TSM roster news. And we're not just going to talk about the actual roster changes, but the differing announcements. Did you see the difference between like their Twitter announcement and then there was a Reddit Reddit reply?
I heard initially, like when this had got, like I got told, I don't know, a day or two before, like, Huni's retiring, and I was like, oh, snap,
Yeah, everybody
Huni's
did by
retiring?
Doublelift. On stream.
Oh, I didn't even see that.
It's funny just because he leaked TSM rumors again.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, he leaked it.
I didn't
early
see it on
also.
a stream anyway. Someone just messaged me, and told me like, oh, he's retiring. This is coming out. Whatever. Maybe it was Larry from his stream. I don't know. But then I saw the tweet, and it was like stepping down temporarily. You know, kind of like
Reevaluating his future.
Yeah, it made it ambiguous. I was like, is the man retiring or not? Right. And then I guess also on Reddit they said retiring, but like I also saw some other comments that he wanted to stick around and maybe like help like coach for Seoul and help develop Seoul and stuff. So yeah, it's very kind of mixed messages and a lot of changes all at once, and some of them pretty brutal. I mean, them talking about Shenyi on Reddit was like, oh.
Yeah, real quick for people who didn't get leaked the news, like a lot of people did. Huni, wrist injuries. So he is not going to be playing top lane anymore. He is going to stay on with the team and help coaching the new top laner, whose name is Seoul, coming from their academy
But
team.
is he retiring as a player? Like, is that official?
I mean, they put out 2 different messages, so I
Our players
can't
ever-
confirm it for you. I would speculate that he is.
Well, also our players.
Let me finish this freaking announcement, though. Instinct and Chime, they're also replacing their bottom lane. They're promoting Instinct, and they bought Chime from Golden Guardians. Okay, go ahead.
Teacher? I was just going to say that when players retire, you don't even know if they're actually going to stay retired because everyone
Yeah.
unretires.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Huni's had such a long career. I was kind of salty, and maybe this is me being like an old curmudgeon, but just like how negative a lot of people were, at least on Twitter, like, good riddance, Huni's trash, get him out of here, that kind of stuff. I was like, God damn, people really don't know Huni and how good he was for so long. And yeah, he has not been a dominant top laner over the last couple of years, but like, He has been a pretty strong player, and in the earlier years of his career, he was like one of the best top laners in the world for a long time. Like when he was playing on Fnatic, he was incredible. When he was playing on Immortals in the early days, he was incredible. On T1 SKT back then, he won LTK, won MSI,
Made World Finals.
and in that World Finals run, I felt like it was him and Faker versus the world. Like the bot lane was not playing well, jungle was not playing well. Like he was one of the shining lights for that team. He was not just like dragged along to a championship. Like this was legitimately one of the best players in the world. And also a really fun guy, right? Like, and I think to be fair, he's shown less of that personality over the last couple of years because I think he hasn't been winning as much. So maybe just like, that's kind of like goes hand in hand. But he's been one of my favorite players to watch for a lot of years. And even when he was on some of like the worst teams in his less dominant years, I think back to like Clutch, right? In the Rumble Kiana and things like that. Like he has had some really impressive runs on even teams that weren't considered that good. And he's been one of the best Rumble players, one of the best GP players for like so many years. I have a lot of great memories associated with him.
That's what I was going to throw out there too. Is like it's not just great teams that he won with. He was one of the few players that felt like he could elevate a mediocre team. Like Echo Fox made 3rd place match and had what was one of the fastest best of 5s ever. I mean, Dardoch popped off as well, but like that was Huni's team in a lot of ways, and he was in the conversation for MVP during that time because of how good he was. And then, like you said, that clutch run was again like, why did that team make Worlds? It's like it doesn't seem like they should have, and they did. So I think he is very underrated because it fell off. But he even during his peaks, people have been critical of him because he has a very volatile playstyle. He is in that like shy prototype where like, you have these 0-10 games.
He's definitely not shy.
Yeah. He's not the shy, but like he has the shy-esque games where like you're 0-10 and people think you're
10-0-0-10.
You're
He's
running
one
it.
of them.
Yeah. He was a coin flip top laner. But that was cool because in North American history, a lot of our best tops have not been the uber aggro, I'm going to take over the game. And Huni was one of the few.
And I mean, you even look at like his days with Rainover, right? Like Huni Rainover as that combo, they were dominating so much. And when they kind of like split up, it was clear that like Huni was the more lasting part of the duo, right?
We
like,
found that out pretty quick.
Yeah, like and I do think Huni deserves a lot of credit for it. And also, it's not like he's been like the worst top laner in the league or anything like that.
Even
right?
as he's retiring now.
Even as he's retiring now, like I still think he's very easily LCS level. And I have heard that it's been a lot harder for him to practice more. And like, as you're having wrist problems, if you're trying to put in more hours to actually like improve your current level, that's very difficult to grind scrims, to grind solo queue, to do all this stuff. Like I have wrist issues, and it becomes really, really severe if you're like not allowing it time to rest. So I'm hopeful for him that he can recover. And if he wants to come back, that he can come back. And as I'm talking about that, it makes me want to do wrist stretches.
Yeah, you just like get subconsciously.
Yeah.
Every time I start hearing any conversation about it, I start doing it. I don't think this is going to make the team better, though. People are wondering about these changes overall. I don't think it's going to be like a big power improvement mid-split from from where they're standing right now. I mean, TSM Academy and Golden Guardians Academy, which they bought Chime from, were both tied for 9th, 10th in Academy currently. I know that they're excited for these specific players from those teams. But I don't think this is going to be. People are like, oh my god, is TSM saved? Not yet.
There's so many angles to talk about this from, because there's the Huni eulogy kind of thing we just did. There's this, like, what's the future for the current set of TSM? There's what does this mean for like next year potentially, because there's the Spica implications. There's what is it going on with their PR, which we kind of touched on, but also like management and coaching. Like there's so many angles to tackle. I guess we'll keep on with the like current form. But yeah, this feels like blowing up and abandoning the dream that you were going to make worlds. Like there was a period of time where in the offseason people were like, this roster could be top 5, and it felt like they gave it 2.5-3 weeks to get there. Dude, and it's not there.
A couple of weeks ago I was thinking that they could maybe push to be top 5.
Yeah, I mean it was a sentiment that like this has the talent on paper to potentially get there. It didn't manifest, and so it feels like they just pulled the plug on the experiment, and they're seeing what pieces that they can start acquiring to look for next year.
I wonder how much of this was like, okay, they were already thinking that they should do this and scrims have been bad the whole split and whatever, and how much was like, oh god, we lost to Dignitas, like we really suck, we gotta change something. Because going previous to that week, they like Spica had some really good individual performances. It felt like Maple was playing all right. Like if they could work together a little bit better, you could see them starting to pick up some wins. And like 5th didn't feel like a stretch of the imagination to me. Like top 5, top 6. And then they had that horrible game against Stig, and like everything blows up. So like I don't know if that's the straw that broke camel's back or if it was completely unrelated, but like it's concerning for TSM. And as you said, there's a lot of angles to it. I think it's really concerning for like the org as well. Like not just how they release Shen Yi, but like when enough things start going bad for an organization, it becomes much harder to get good talent to join you, right? And TSM has not had like years and years and years of bad performances. It wasn't that long ago that they won last, but like their reputation is tanking so fast, it is actually crazy. And now they import all these LPL players at the start of the year, right? And that has completely flopped. And it was like this unceremonious exit for Shen Yi where they kind of dump on him. They say he's a liability for their academy team to develop, and like, really kind of dumping on this player who was a huge prospect in the LPL, who apparently had starting role offers in the LPL. It's like, how many people are going to want to come to this org, right? I really have concerns for TSM's future because of that. And it starts to be this position where, and I never thought I would say this about TSM, it's like, Spica, you almost feel like you got to get out of there. Like you're ruining your career being on TSM. And that's like blasphemy a couple of years ago. This team always made finals, was always one of the best orgs, one of the best known orgs in the world, right? Like TSM Chance made their way international even when TSM didn't, because of the popularity of the org and how well reputed it was. But like, it's just weird, and I do feel really bad for Spica now. It's like, if this is a move towards 2023, trying to find some pieces that'll work for next year, well, there goes another year for Spica, right? Like this guy was the MVP.
How long is his contract? I think it's up next year.
It's up this year.
I think it's up. Yeah, I think this is his last year on contract.
And if you lose Spica, then what the hell is TSM going to do? Like who wants to join this team, right? Like that is your big star. And if you can't even convince him that it's good to stay, and I feel like it will be hard to convince him that it's good to stay after this year, the future for TSM looks grim. Like a lot of the decisions that they're making are really questionable. And like player roster aside, they have lost like all of the coaches and managers and all the people that were involved in their long stretch of success pretty much, right? So it feels hard. It feels hard for them to come back from this.
I mean, it's been on fire internally for TSM for a while now. And just constantly hearing all these, stories and stuff, the ones that come out, and then the explanations,
the ones that don't sometimes,
the explanations of like why that's the story that did come out, and like what was going on is just like, oh my gosh, how are things still running? Yeah, honestly, at the beginning it was like, oh, haha, look at all this drama we're getting from TSM, but now it's like, oh my god. Somebody do something.
Yeah. On the Spica angle first, I guess. The best argument you might be able, there's a lot of things to navigate. On the Spica angle, the best argument for him maybe staying on TSM, funnily enough, is that a lot of the junglers on other teams feel pretty cemented, like Closer with 100 Thieves and Santorum with TL, and like maybe TL would...
What if TL wanted to look more towards the future?
TL is a team that's pretty aggressive with turning over their roster, so maybe that's his best angle, but like Blabber with C9, like a lot of the top teams inspired with EG are not going to spring necessarily, so maybe that's the only. But other than that, Spica definitely is going to be a hotly contested free agent, you would think, this offseason. On the PR angle, I actually, and I know this is not the popular take because a lot of people in the scene I already know have come out and been like about this whole like liability thing, are really against that kind of information coming out or like that opinion.
It's the language. It's
the language, yeah.
It's not the information.
Well, I mean, liability compared to some of the things that have come out is not even that aggressive, I would say.
Yeah.
Well, basically, he's saying like they're hampering their development.
Yeah.
Like you're stopping your academy. That's like, I think that's like pretty damning as far as like job recommendations. This guy prevents our academy roster from getting
but
better.
it's not a leaked video of him flaming the hell out of his team or something like we have come out before. And I think to defend Shenyi before I take this angle,
Yep.
I think Shenyi was given an impossible task. He was brought in as a really young guy, expected to shot call and lead in a different country without what looked like a functioning support system around him in the actual management. The management was on fire independently of what was going on with like bringing in LDL prospects and stuff like that. Like there was no world where Shenyi could have succeeded this split outside of this roster just being insane. That's how it felt. So like I don't judge him for losing motivation and like mental booming a little bit, which is what it sounded like happened when he lost his starting spot. I don't blame him at all as a young kid for being in that situation.
Yeah.
This is not a shot at him. Independently, an organization saying something happened is not going to kill his career, and it's not going to stop players from going there after the things that we have seen in this scene. Like CLG still signed players after the Bud Light Ace, you know, like they still have a functioning team. TL after breaking
It's a better team, actually.
Yeah, it's a better team. TL still signed players after breaking point. Like there's been a lot of times where orgs have kind of leaked, like kind of put a player down, fairly or unfairly, and they still sign players, and those players still have careers afterwards. And so I do think the scene gets really like hand wringing about like, oh my God, they said something negative about their own player that they just released. I don't really care. Like, thank God they've said something, so I will defend it, but the inconsistencies across the messaging I don't like.
Yeah, I was going to say that also from what I've been hearing is very much both sides have some blame here. So yes, like it is kind of, the language that they chose is kind of shitty, but I do actually want, you know, more info in situations like this. I don't want another thing where they're like, oh, we got some systems in place and they just didn't match up. And I know you're not lobbying for that, but it is from the things I've been hearing too, like Shenyi for sure, like it was like a big mental boom, and it was you know, things were definitely not working out behind the scenes. And yes, you can also say, yeah, you know, TSM, you know, maybe unless we get like investigative journalism, you know, videos leaks, you know, from behind the scenes or whatever, could also be their coaching staff and how they're interacting with him and you know, how the parties are working together. But I think it's a case where there is blame on both sides.
For sure. There's blame on both sides. And I'm not even saying it's unreasonable to like, you know, he just doesn't deserve criticism or whatever. But like, man, I don't know. Reading it is pretty rough. Unfortunately, Shenyi is becoming a liability to our academy team's development. We originally believed that Shenyi could be our starting support for our LCS team. However, we quickly realized that Mia had a better champion pool and better laning skills than Shenyi. Like, I don't know. I just think you could just put it in a way like, hey, we set goals for Shenyi. He didn't live up to his expectations. He hasn't been performing at the level that we've needed from him. We're replacing him. Boom. It's like basically the same. This just sounds like pretty brutal. It's like not only are you saying like, oh, like basically, you know, he's like toxic for your team. He's preventing the development, but also his champion pool is bad and his laning skills are bad. And so like that feels pretty rough. Especially when it's like they're not even putting Mia in as their starter right now, right? Like Mia, obviously, they have some information on him too. I actually feel like the information that they gave on a lot of people was pretty transparent and didn't feel as brutal. Like Chime, for example, I loved this information. They said like his performance over the break was top notch, gave us confidence in his ability to succeed. Because of this synergy, we decided to use him in Chime as an LCS starter in week 5. So they're saying it's only week 5. He had a good week, but they also say they still believe in Mia and like he has to get back to where they think he can get. Like that's all great info. I love the transparency. But like those couple sentences there for Shenyi feels a bit too much to me. And like we can agree to disagree on it. But I do think like as much as you're saying, hey, like this doesn't stop players from getting signed, I have also specifically talked to players and coaches who have literally referenced like things like this as reasons that they have not gotten signed. That like someone said in an interview that they're toxic or whatever, and like the player will tell me, yeah, well this gets brought up and they decide they're going to go a different way because they're not sure if I'm going to be good for the team and stuff. So like I do think sometimes teams don't do full due diligence and like just hear something or whatever.
Wait, sometimes they don't do full due diligence.
So it's like these quotes can affect you.
They can, but what usually is the case far more often than the interview is people talking behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And that's why I really don't care as much about this, because what really, if someone is usually getting hampered, it's because your players who were playing with you while you were being toxic, everyone talks to each other on Discord and on other things, and they relay some of these stories and they spread around. Like Kobe and I have probably heard some pretty bad stories about what's been going on at TSM recently that have not come publicly. If you and I know those, a lot of other people in the scene know those. And this is not that bad compared to the stories I have heard. So in that context, you might blame this for the reason that maybe someone doesn't get a job, like situations like this. But in reality, it's actually usually the behind the scenes conversations. And to the point about due diligence, a lot of people don't ask for firsthand sources and they just go with these rumors. And it's usually less these public facing things that are getting you in trouble and more the things behind the scenes that didn't bubble up.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of Game of Thrones behind
that's a good way to
the
put
scenes action actually going on. All right, so good discussion, a lot of news. Shall we get to our first Anchor.fm question here from Felipe?
Sure.
Hello, I was wondering, why do you guys think teams always change players before coaches? Thank you.
Short, sweet, and to the point.
Yeah.
I like that type of question. So we were actually kind of discussing this a little bit earlier. Do you actually feel like there have been a decent amount of coaches released? Because I feel like this is true. You know, I guess there are definitely more players, and so player changes, there are going to be a higher volume of player changes. I don't remember like a lot of really big impact coaching changes. Like, what was there? There was drama with Jat. Mm-hmm. There was drama behind the scenes with Reapered.
But they rode that out at the end of the split.
Exactly, but that wasn't like a mid-split thing. That was like just end of the year thing, and then he ended up on 100 Thieves, another top teammate. So I feel like there hasn't been super big, big coaching changes that were like super drama.
TL has done a lot of coaching changes.
The only one I can think of is the Jat one, though.
They had between spring and summer when Jack came in.
I mean, Kane, Croissant, like all the people that they like.
Well, the double-lift situation is what got Jat brought in. So like they had gone through something, but they also changed out double-lift during that time too.
Yeah.
D-Lim was also a TL coach for a bit, right? Like,
yeah, but he didn't.
To answer the question though, why do you think, whether you think that the teams change players before coaches or not, which I think that they do. There are way less volume of coaches to choose from. New prospects, like who are you going to replace your coach with, is the biggest issue with replacing coaches. You know, yes, there are a lot of teams that are like, or players are constantly talking about how this coach isn't teaching me anything, or this coach isn't good for the team, but they're looking around and there are very few, if any, coaches that have well-organized layouts for how they want to improve teams, even an idea and a structure of what they want to bring to a team, much less coaches that have that plus experience and proven success. Like that dwindles their list down to like 1-2 people.
So to go to your point, I think to read into the question that the caller is talking about, Felipe, it's less about changing coaches between splits or seasons and more about like in-season changes, I think is what he's saying. It's like, why are players looked to as the problem and not the coaches?
Yeah, and I'm saying because it's almost impossible to replace them.
I also think in-season, like even if there is another good candidate for coach, like the coach is setting like your whole system, right? So it's like you're almost starting from ground zero if you change your coach mid-split. I think that can be really, really disruptive. So oftentimes they are going to put it off till the end of the year because it's like, okay, if you're going to change your whole strategy around practice, if you're going to change the entire play style, if you're going to practice,
who's organizing scrim,
exactly, like all these things can really be a massive shift that affects everyone. So I think like as far as in split changes, people are hoping that like, okay, Mark's kind of bad, but like Kobe will be better, so we can like pop him in there and maybe everything else can be the same, but we're just going to like win more games. Whereas coaching kind of really does touch everything and is going to be a bigger shift. But like another example I had was Zix, right? Like Zix went from like being, winning a bunch of coach to split, or at least being talked about as one of the best coaches in the split. I remember even when Parth was winning coach to the split and stuff, he said he thought Zix was the best coach, and having kind of that conversation. And he went from like CLG for a long time to TSM for a year to 100 Thieves for a year to no job, right? And like I do think coaches do get dropped pretty quickly, but it kind of feels more like if it's like a team with stars, then the coach is more likely to get fired. If it's a team with like smaller name players, then the players are more likely to just get recycled, because it's easier for the coach to say, oh, well, it's like these guys' fault kind of thing.
Well, I think another like obvious reason why it's easier to change the players than the coaches is there are obvious metrics that you can just point to that the player is underperforming or doing bad. There's no obvious metric for coaching staff, behind the scenes. There's no stats there. And so it's all about how involved the management above the coach is with that team and paying attention and, truly and fairly like evaluating the success of the coach as opposed to the player. And you're like, why is this player inting first blood every single game? Get him out of here. Like, it's way easier to point to that and say, look at that problem. I see it on stage, which are the only times that like the management above them, watch games or whatever, right? They're not in scrims all the time and stuff. And so that information filter, I think, is a big reason too.
Yeah, that gets into a bit of politics within internally on the
I can
team.
see your brain working there as you're trying to figure out your pathway.
It's basically, I think, coaches are more embedded within an organization to not only just all the system things you guys are talking about, but also like this information filter up and the relationships and these kinds of things. A coach has a unfair power advantage to survive in an environment where something's not going well or there's these problems. Like, generally speaking, a coach will be more in contact with their GM or their ownership group than a player will be. Even if you do talk to a player a fair amount, like it's just like the structure doesn't give players as much thing. And I know a lot of pro players in the past have complained about how little agency players have in teams these days compared to the glory days, the golden era.
When we ran the whole team, baby.
Yeah.
The staff was us.
They have lost a lot of power. And so I do think that causes players to get blamed in these situations that you guys are talking about. They're also more public. Like, a lot of coaches who are positional coaches, assistant coaches, get fired over the split, and people just don't talk about it because it's not, there's not a different guy in the chair now. Not even a different guy on stage usually. It's just some random guy who got let go that no one knows. So I think a lot of the common turnover is less visible, but I do agree that I think players get unfairly blamed. And I think in this TSM situation, to tie it back into the previous conversation, that management / coaching group is going to get a critical eye, I think, in the offseason, because this has been a dumpster fire of a split. And I don't blame any of the players.
It's a lot of fresh management. So as far as the critical eye, Azael was touching on it earlier, how much of a clean sweep they did with getting basically all new upper management and everything.
Parth gone, Mina gone, Bjergsen gone.
Except for Reggie. So yeah, lots of changes there. Good question. Thank you for the Anchor.fm question. Keep sending those in if you're listening right now. We love to stockpile those. So even if we don't use it immediately upon getting it, like we did, I think, with this one, our producer loves to have options to work with.
Totally. All right, 12-13, the patch notes came out today. This is a big patch.
It's a chonky boy.
I've been waiting for this one. Everybody's been waiting because this is a situation where we saw the balance team like release basically the notes, almost saw the notes really early, and then Riot took the week off. And so we just kind of been waiting for the other foot to drop. At least I have. So I'm super excited for this one, because I've got my whole plan ahead of how to
what you're going to abuse for
how to continue climbing. Because one of the things I was abusing was Volibear.
Yeah,
and Volibear got whacked.
Time to abuse Master Yi because he seems broken. There was a few like kind of what they call them, I guess, like the mid scope changes or mid scope updates or whatever they call them. Sivir is really interesting. Like, this is a lot of changes. They're like, Sivir is just not really being played at all anymore. At least it's very rare. There was the one game from Luger that's like the only like recent pro game that sticks in my mind. It's very hard for like to justify picking this champion because the range is incredibly short. Like, you're not able to participate in kind of team fights as well as you used to be able to. I think there's a lot more threat than there used to be some of the older days when Sivir was super popular. So they've completely changed Sivir around. There's all kinds of base stat changes. Like, her base health is going down a lot. Her passive 25. They're giving you more move speed than you used to get, but it's decaying instead of flat. But 20% flat at level 1. Or 20 more move speed flat at level 1 is a significant amount, because I think you only get 25 from rank 1 boots. So like that is a significant little boost of move speed there. The Q changes feels like it's shifting the Q much more towards late game, because the base damage is going down. It can actually scale with crit. So like if you get to 100% crit, it's 50% bonus damage later on. But it's much more, it feels like, pushed towards a late game scaling thing, which is leading me to believe that W is the new max. They're taking the passive attack speed that used to be with Ricochet on your ultimate and actually just putting it on the W. So you do have a ton of attack speed early on in the game. It's just flat 4 seconds that it lasts instead of only 3 attacks. So like if you have a ton of attack speed, you could potentially get a ton of these attacks out. It can also bounce to the same player twice now, potentially. But as you were talking about, when we were talking about this earlier, Mark, like the total AD ratio on this is down significantly. So like the individual bounces will do less. It also does less damage to minions. But it's going to be interesting, because I feel like with that change, plus the E spell shield being health back instead of mana, like if you have enough mana to actually play out the lane, like Sivir could be pretty strong with W max and just like hard shoving the wave with your bonus attack speed, right? And just using the E for sustain. I'm just not sure if you're going to have enough mana, because your base mana went up a tiny bit, mana growth went down, mana regen went down. You don't get mana back on your E, so it feels like you like almost have to go crit for some of the scaling that they're kind of like putting into the queue and stuff, which feels like Essence Reaver Rush.
Yeah,
I'm just not
she
sure
already loved Essence Reaver though, so.
Yeah, well, everyone's doing lethality these days, right? So no one was really going Essence Reaver anymore. It was like all the spellcaster builds. But I'm just not sure if you have enough mana to actually make it through the laning phase or not, right? But if you can actually access the wave, this feels like almost like kind of like Zyrocon-esque, where you have all that bonus attack speed that is going to allow you to always get shove.
I can imagine the whirlwind of boomerang blades as well, with the increased range of the bouncing and 8 bounces and stuff, and how much attack speed she gets. Just imagining everybody on my team trying to separate from each other in team fights, to break the 500 range. Like I feel like it's gonna have a lot of that like team fight AOE damage that you're looking for later.
And the Q can go down to a 0-second cast time.
Yeah,
you can
so
just be throwing it out as you're autoing.
I'm seeing this and I'm thinking danger already. Danger for my team fights. So Sivir was already kind of difficult. Especially if you're like a spell based, diver. I always play junglers that are trying to
got blocked their one ability and they're like, all right, I'm done.
One, exactly.
Follow the bear.
Like I play a lot of Rek'Sai, and if you have a spell shield against Rek'Sai, let me tell you, you're looking good. But yeah, I think that one's a pretty cool change. I don't know if you want to point out.
I was just gonna say I'm excited for these changes because they've really changed your identity. Because there's also what you forgot to mention is the attack or basic ability refund on auto attacks when you're ulted.
Yeah.
And so with the no animation speed, with all the things that are scaling now with attack speed and crit in her build, she's very clearly, and the fact that her E heals her instead of, it's like she's supposed to be in a fight scrapping it out, trying to like life steal sustain with all these bounces
move speed and stuff.
Yeah, with move speed and like insane attack speed. So like the identity is cool to me. I don't know if it's good. It's hard to look at this and get any sort of like feeling of like, wow, that's busted. It's maybe it is. Maybe it'll be super underwhelming. I can't tell.
Did find it funny they added more healing to the game by adding healing.
Yeah, more healing.
Plus the R now the duration refreshes every time you get an assist even. So theoretically, if you're like playing with a dive comp, you could just be nonstop getting refreshes on like your Olaf or your whatever running in, getting that move speed back over and over. It seems really, really powerful. Mm-hmm. But I feel like so much of it is just going to depend on like, can you lane well? Because I think if people can't just like walk past the wave and kill you if you try to lane, then like it's gonna be very hard to lane against Sivir, right? Like if she just walks up level 1 W, having the bonus attack speed right off the bat seems really, really powerful.
All right, my single change I'm most excited for though is Corki nerf, baby.
I knew what you were going to say, Corki nerf.
They're nerfing Corki rockets. They're nerfing Corki scaling. I'm so happy. So happy to see this. Huh?
It's a Bjergsen buff.
Thunder are coming in hot.
Yeah, because they're nerfing the AP ratio, but they're not nerfing the AD ratio on the rockets. Bjergsen buff.
So anyways, I really do like really happy with this nerf and this attempt at starting to change some of the meta, especially for mid lane, because I want to see more kill oriented and roaming mid laners, of course, as well as more kill oriented and roaming bottom laners to come in. Also, I'm super hyped for a whole bunch of junglers. Evelyn getting some buffs. Elise is getting some buffs. Olaf is getting some lane nerfs with mana cost and health generation, but getting attack speed passive buffs. So is going to be, since junglers don't have to care about mana regen because you get so much mana regen from your jungle item, should be actually positive for jungle Olaf. So I'm bringing him in to replace my Volibear. And definitely going to get some Evelyn in, because Evelyn is so fun when you get ahead.
The Yi buffs are really insane. Like
I saw Resh playing it last night, and it was actually hilarious. So he's always just normally hilarious, but like, yeah, whenever you're adding straight 50 attack range to a melee champion, it's that's gotta be hugely beneficial. Not to mention the reposition on your Alpha Strike adds so much more counterplay. It's like, when Zed is having matchups, right? And you're like playing Arya or something, and you just always know, I'll throw my charm behind me, right? And so you catch him, out of the ultimate. Master Yi you're not gonna be able to predict his meditate or his Alpha Strike anymore. And meditate got increased to 90%.
And half the cooldown.
Damage reduction for the beginning, and you can just snap cast it, so you get 0.5 90% at the very beginning, and it'll linger for another 0.5%. So you can just snap cast it for like a mid fight 90% damage reduction for a full second, not even having to channel the rest of it for the reduced damage reduction or anything.
That plus the mana cost changes to cost a lot more the longer you channel it. Clearly is supposed to be dropped in the middle of a fight to negate a big chunk of damage and then keep going, as opposed to just like actually channeling and just healing.
You just pop this way.
That's the old animation, remember? Before he
but he doesn't jiggle it, he just holds it.
No,
it goes up and down.
His old animation,
when
it was triangle feet, feet, he would do this, and then they update him to just hold it up and meditate. But, I'm talking about old Buju Master.
Yeah, the pizza feet.
Pizza feet.
Pizza feet.
You're living in the past.
That's definitely true.
I mean, the 50 attack range just seems insane.
Yeah.
I feel like this is gonna get hotfix nerfed. It's got it. Like, it seems, it just sounds crazy to me.
You're supposed to give a little, take a little, right?
This is just give a lot.
Where's the take?
Nothing. It's just give.
Yeah.
Especially at low elo where he is already like overpowered. This seems so broken. But like that change is really crazy. The Fiddlesticks. Are you excited about the Fiddlestick stuff? Like longer fear duration and buff?
So durability really sucked for Fiddlesticks, because Fiddlesticks is so much about big burst of your ulti, and if you can't kill people in your fear durations, I'm definitely gonna try it, because I played a lot of Fiddlesticks, but I don't know really if this is going to be enough, because the increase on fear duration was like 0.25 seconds. My laptop died. I don't have the
0.25. Yep.
Yeah, it's a little bit. That seems a little bit more placebo, because considering they gave Seraphine like an extra, half just when she was already good.
Yeah.
No salt there. But yeah, I mean, it's enough to like try them again. I'm not super excited or something. It does give you more of what I was talking about, where your ultimate has more damage also, so you have a better chance at having your big ultimate moment and getting that kill. But then I'm still like, okay, for the rest of the match though, when I don't have ultimate, I'm even more.
Well, yeah, like the 0.25 second fear change is one that you probably won't feel very much, but will actually help you a fair amount, in the sense like, oh, now I get a little bit longer to try and get that little bit of damage out to kill them.
I mean, it's definitely going to be a benefit.
Yeah.
It's not a negative thing.
It's good, but it's definitely not a feel thing. And a lot of things in games are like, how does it, do I feel stronger even if the win rate goes up from 1%? People aren't going to have a perception change about the champion.
Pretty good chunk of damage on the ulti. So if that means I can actually get my kills with it, with the big ulti, then maybe. I'm just so much more excited to play all these other junglers that the Fiddlesticks is not really in my mind right now. I think
you're playing Evelyn?
My AP, I'm going to play Evelyn, but
do you think the passive changes really matter that much though for Evelyn? It's just like you heal faster when you're in stealth, basicly.
I think it does matter. I think I'm pretty excited because she was already in a decent place. And I was gonna say though, I have 2 APs. Evelyn's gonna be added. Sunfire, Daimonic, Diana. I still am trying to get all the junglers to play that. It's really busted. It's like 4% higher win rate.
I was watching your stream and you're talking about it nonstop.
So those are good AP options, and then Olaf, Rek'Sai, really good early game options as well. So, and there's so many good enchanters right now. You could just play Olaf. I would not be surprised if we see a bunch of like Blabber Olaf comps where they've got Seraphine and Senna healing them up from behind. We get new Sivir in here for some speed up again. Olaf loves that too. So I think Olaf's going to be in a pretty healthy place back to jungle instead of just top lane.
I'll also defend the Evelyn buffs because I can imagine Malice in competitive, because I was watching Academy a lot more last split when he was playing, and he made Evelyn look broken sometimes.
Yeah.
And what makes him so good at Evelyn is the use of stealth and the passive in mid to late game team fights to know the limits of the champion, get out, get healed back up, and now that you chunked him to 20% health, you got checked to 20% health, and then you heal up and run back in.
Cap and he's back to whatever,
yeah,
70%.
so the fact that she can kill people easier with the allure MR reduction, the fact that the R now puts your passive on a much shorter cooldown, so you can R out and instantly begin healing, and then you get more healing.
It's not instantly. So like,
1.25 seconds instead of 4.
It's way better.
Way better. So you can just do that kind of annoying, harassing late game power, which is the hardest part of the champion to play in competitive, probably.
Yeah.
And if there's any good Evelyns in the LCS, please try her.
Yeah. No, I'm definitely excited. Also, just because when you do live the fantasy of Evelyn and you have a successful early game and you start to get fed, it is one of the most fun champions, one of the most fun experiences that you can have in this game. I know you like playing rogues, Azael, so like actually just running around the map invisible, assassinating people, and just like, you're one shot here. Oh, I've got 25 stacks on my Medjais. You just keep one-shotting everybody. And Yumi's in the game. Have you ever played Evelyn with a Yumi on you? That is actually the most godlike jungle experience there is, because you can just literally go find anyone on the map and they're just dead.
It's cool.
Contracts.
Yeah.
CLG, the Yumi team.
Get in there. Get some Yumi Evelyn going.
It's also
thank you for the replacement.
There's also Gwen got like a mid scope change. So Gwen also it's supposed to be like a nerf towards pro. There's a lot of actual just kind of like damage type changes. Like the E gets more attack range. It does more damage on hit, but you get less cooldown refund. The main what I parsed out of this is what they're considering to be the big pro nerfs are less cooldown refund on the E, and the Hallowed Miss lasts 1 second less. So like those are the two big changes. I'm just not sure like how much that offsets. Also, the R is not the instant reset on auto attack. It's just a 1 second delay. So you can just use it more for like wave clear or even like long range without having to be up on someone, because it just auto resets in between between the shots where you don't have to like catch up to them. So against range champions, that could actually be a buff. The Q damage actually went up. And has better wave clear now. If a minion is below 20% and gets queued, it takes 1,000% bonus damage. So it's just insta one shot.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like it kind of read almost like a buff to me.
What it read, because I remember the last episode we did, and Mark was like, reread those Belveth changes, and I said, what is under the nerfs? It's definitely a nerf, right? And now I'm rereading this one. I'm having the same feeling. I'm like, wait a second here.
I feel like it's a buff.
It's called an adjustment, to be fair.
Okay.
It's supposed to be a pro nerf.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a pro nerf. But yeah, I think the R power is going to be quite big. So
yeah, like even it does so much damage. I could just see a team fight where it's like you're just poking people out with this thing, right? Like you don't even have to dive in.
Yeah, that seems like a huge utility buff in terms of chase down sequences, where like if you didn't have an auto attack, the person could get out
against like Jace.
Yeah, and now she can just keep chasing.
Yep.
And I already thought the armor and magic resist in your Hallowed Mist was kind of underrated. They're increasing it. Yeah, the duration is going down, but now, like, sometimes there was counterplay, like, ooh, I'll get inside the mist and we can actually kill her.
Like it's like Jax or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. But now, even though you could target her with spells, she's going to be even more tanky still inside it, during the
For me, the
duration.
The crux of it, if it's a buff or a nerf, will be how much damage is the 75% instead of 100% true damage on her Q.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, I haven't done the math on like what the breakpoint is for the armor or the MR needs to be to make that change, but assuming it's not that high, then this is probably a buff.
You also get more E on hit damage and more range. You just don't get the refund as much. So
Yeah.
that is going to be a big change.
But to be fair, I think the refund was very valuable for being able to take Ignite TP because good Gwens could get the refund and still have their E to dodge things. So like I can see that one still being a nerf for pro play, but the Q change with the if the damage is actually lower in the majority of cases, assuming you're sweet spotting it, then I think this is a nerf maybe for pro.
It'll be interesting to see how it works out. Most important change of the patch, though, of course, Renekton got buffs, so we know it's back to 100%.
Bring it back, baby! I missed that crocodile.
The R scale's a little bit off AD. I don't know if that's really going to matter if I ever plays Renekton.
No. The real thing we need to talk about, which I know Kobe's passionate about, objective bounties.
Yep.
Kobe, what's your take on these objective bounty changes?
Okay, so I will say that at least, so Matt, the designer that we actually had on the episode where we did the interview with them.
Right, Froxon.
Yeah, Froxon did do a follow-up tweet addressing one of the parts that was most frustrating to me about the patch notes, where the second part where they're talking about objective bounties, it gives almost no information.
Do you want me to read the tweet?
Yeah, because I don't have the login for this one.
He tweeted out, he says, sorry I griefed the patch notes a bit. The objective bounty changes to dragons and turrets are a nerf to their valuation. This means that dragon and turret advantages are less likely to trigger objective bounties, which relatively means experience and gold make up more of the share. So it's hopefully going to eliminate some of those weird ones where it's like a team is down 5k but have 3 dragons, and randomly the team that is like up gold has bounties, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like things like that are just like not really working how you would expect.
And so that is like the third change that they made. They also said that they are reducing the amount that you have to catch up to start giving away your bounties. Okay, this is really hard to explain. Okay, that was not clear. Okay, so let's say this is the winning team. This is the team that's trying to make the comeback. Now your bounties will start to disappear earlier. So you only come back like this much, they start to disappear. But they linger, you know, that thing in the bottom right corner ticks for 60 seconds instead of just 5 seconds. So they will start to go away earlier, but it will last on the map, and both teams will know that there is 60 seconds left of the objective bounties still on the map.
So there's potentially more time. Like if you win a big team fight while it's lingering, you could maybe run and grab a couple objective bounties from towers.
But it is supposed to start triggering the lingering and start going away earlier. So that
we just don't know the exact numbers, so it's hard to know, is this actually like less of a swing or more of a swing?
That's the frustrating part, because you're like, okay, so if it's significantly earlier, that means that the comebacks won't be as crazy or prolific.
One little thing that I just noticed. So claiming an objective bounty as bounties are lingering now cancels all other objective bounties. So you can't grab multiple.
Yeah, so
that is a good change.
Exactly. That takes away the big
so you can't,
slingshot or whatever. Grab a whole bunch.
3 towers and then it falls
But it's
off.
basically like you have 60 seconds to get your last one.
Get a bounty.
Yeah, get your last bounty.
To get you into what the game considers an equal state.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so, even though we still don't have the details on that, I think that generally this is a positive change to objective bounties.
Yeah.
I still think maybe a little bit of adjustment for the rewards and stuff is good, but I'm happy that they are still looking at it and still making adjustments. And generally, I think these are going to be positive.
Also, a lot of people I know are going to be wondering where the hell are the pro changes for early game. I do know, and I have been given permission to say that Riot is working on those. Pre 15 kills in pro are down like 30%, I believe is the numbers that I saw internally. So a lot. And that is leading to the feeling of slow, stale games in a lot of the games. They are working on it. The one thing I was allowed to mention about it is that they are looking to reduce systemic sustain. So like runes and items and so on, maybe giving less sustain in the future to try to like create more action, which I like that.
But Azael, Sivir just got extra healing on her spell shield. What's going on?
But I do think that would be a good way to do it, because it makes lanes more risky, right? If you take a bad trade and your potions heal for less and your second wind heals for less or your grass heals for less, then you have to either stay at low health and risk dying, or you have to base and take a fat L.
We need to bring Morello back on consultation so he can kill healing, because
Morello was holding back the tide the whole time.
He was always very worried about there being overhealing and stuff.
His motto secretly behind the scenes was "F you, Soraka."
I concur.
All right, so I think we're ready to move on officially into, hey, guess what? LCS is back this weekend.
And we have an Anchor FM question on TL.
Okay, I think it's funny that we didn't talk about the new champ. That is also going to be out on that patch, but we can do that next time because we're already deep in the weeds.
We haven't played it yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Hey, guys. Want to talk TL here. Been pretty frustrating watching them lose all these games when it feels like they've got the talent to be winning. But it seems like they're either trying new things or just not down with what seems to be, the meta, scaling. I mean, they run some scaling, but, the high CC, high engage, and they seem to run no CC, no engage comps all the time, and then just do nothing and try and outplay. Do you think this is them kind of experimenting or trying new things before playoffs happen, or do you think that they just really think that's the best way to play the game? And I think if they don't change up their play style, they could miss Worlds altogether. Wanted to get your guys' take. Thanks.
Yeah, I did think it might get hard for them if there's going to be a lot of Enchanter supports, because CoreJJ is so critical for this team for starting fights. It's him and Santorin, basically. I guess now that they've added Bwipo, he's had some really good Gragas games for Gragas engages. But besides the Gragas, yeah, it feels like they definitely still need a point man, and there have even been some pretty big fluctuations. I know Core himself was not too happy with some of the games that he played. So improvements all around, plus Enchanters coming out in big.
I feel like I'm someone who has pushed the disappointed in TL angle, and even I'm like, you're going too far, guy. Gonna miss Worlds. I don't think that they will end up fourth.
I think there's a very, very competitive top four. So I actually agree with them. I think there's a good chance that any of the top four could easily miss right now. I don't think it's super clear. You've got EG, 100 Thieves, Team Liquid,
C9,
and Cloud9, I think. And then CLG maybe close.
I don't disagree that it's a competitive top four and any of those could miss, but I don't think Team Liquid looks substantially worse than 100 Thieves or C9. I think EG is the clear runaway best in the league right now, but C9 just had a really bad game that they dropped. 100 Thieves last weekend had some bad games. TL has not had a good 2 weeks. I don't disagree with that, but I think all three of them are in that you're good, but you have some things to work on territory. So I think this is more negative on TL when everyone is kind of having similar-ish problems.
The reason I kind of agree, though, is because is it shocking that you're like, oh, yeah, 50-50, they could miss Worlds, they could be that fourth team, they're pretty much even with all the other ones, when you're like, they spent the most money, they instantly sign all these stars, and they're trying to have this star-studded lineup.
That's why I'm fine to be disappointed. I am on that still. I'm disappointed in TL. You should be crapping on the league. I think that's what this roster should be doing, and they're not doing it, so it's fine to be disappointed, but I don't know if you should be super hater on them and they're this slow do nothing team, because some of the games they lost they were still being proactive in, the TSM loss, CoreJJ on Bard and Santorin on Volibear still made a number of kills happen. It
was really just the 100 Thieves TL one that was this weekend, and they did nothing. The Renata Callista one where they just waited till late game and didn't do anything.
Yeah,
that one was a little bit weird for sure. I agree with you on a lot of it, and I said this even at the start of the year, that to me, if they didn't win both spring and summer and have a deep international run, that they failed. With how much money you're putting in and the people.
Guess they already failed.
I feel like the only way that this year is not a failure is that they go and have a good run at Worlds, right? If they make semis or something, then everyone's super happy, right? I think if you make quarters, then maybe you're kind of borderline. I mean, TL has been one game away from quarters every single year, always.
It would be an improvement.
They go 3-3 every single time. But I just feel with bringing in Hans and Bwipo and Bjergsen and everything that they did, this was fully with the intention of dominating North America and then also doing well internationally. So definitely have not been able to dominate NNA. Doesn't mean that they can't get things together and start to. I wouldn't be feeling particularly concerned about their regular season start, though. They're 5-2. They're one game behind EG, and I do think the meta is also going to be changing. We know that Riot is going to be looking to make the early game more active, and I think that feels like a buff to CoreJJ and probably a buff to TL, because if the early game becomes more active, if sustain is worse, all ins are easier. Guess what? Enchanters become worse as well. So I don't think that it's time to think the sky's falling on TL by any means.
Yeah, I think the perspective should also be one of excitement for all these top four 4/5 teams at the top. Everybody has the like negative attitude of like, oh, my team's not, guaranteed top 2 or whatever. But it's actually so good that we have all these competitive teams at the top. I feel like top of the league is super competitive right now, especially with CLG being such a better version of themselves this time around, and even pushing towards top 5. So I think it's quite cool that we can have these interchangeable 100 Thieves, EG, Cloud9, Team Liquid moves.
And you'll see exactly how much you should be panicked based off the fact that TL is playing EG on Sunday, Game 3. Circle that one on your calendars because that's the true test. If EG, I think everyone agrees, looks like the best team in the league by a lot.
I'm excited to see what they did in the break, too.
I heard they took off.
I heard nothing.
I heard they took a break.
Oh, wait, I saw Danny tweet that he landed last night. Also, he's like, back in LA.
Inspired.
I saw Inspired and Vulcan memeing about it.
Yeah, I heard that they hadn't played it at all.
Okay.
They're chilling. And I think rightfully so.
Yeah, get some more break time. They had the MSI.
Not hangover.
Yeah, exactly. Extra grind, though.
Well, Vulcan did say that, like, the fact that they did good at the start of the split and didn't have a hangover means that they can continue to pace themselves.
Yeah,
if they
good job. Go on vacation.
Yeah, if they were 0-7 heading into this week, they're not getting the time off.
Yeah. And I mean, you want to just try to set up to spike for playoffs, right? Like to be at your very best going into playoffs. So, no, I'm really excited to see how this match goes. I do think EG has looked like by far the best team. To me, they're just like head and shoulders above everyone else as far as team fighting and skirmishing. That's the biggest difference by far. It's not like they're the perfect team. It's not like they don't make mistakes. Sometimes they jump in on some boneheaded fights, try to bail people out when maybe they shouldn't. But I do think you're going to get some of that when you want to have a team that's just like acting as one unit. And I do think to be the best that you possibly can be in team fighting, your team has got to have no hesitation on fights, right? You've got to all follow the call and all be working together. And more often than not, it works out perfectly for them. And they're so good at playing these fights to the wire where they have no health left, but they're staying around just for that opportunity where they're going to be able to come back in. I think it was one of the MF games that Danny was playing where like he barely survives with like 10% HP or 5% HP. And he just like stays around for so long until the enemy, I think it was like Azir gets CC'd again. So he can step back in for 1Q auto. And like that makes the difference, So being really able to play that line always is going to have some of the fights where they just go bad and you look silly, but I think EG has been incredible.
Yeah, I think EG is the favorite. Any other games that you guys want to look at?
POV versus 100 Thieves, baby.
All right, you go.
I still... Like, I know
the CLG train.
After the last weekend, I knew everyone was going to jump off and completely flip and start flaming them because they had the most difficult schedule. They have Cloud9 and Team Liquid. So I was ready for it, okay? I was ready for the onslaught. And I'm like, you can't phase me. I knew this was coming already. I still think this team should be very happy, and they're a much better version of CLG, and they still are within striking distance of these top 4 teams. Yes, they're kind of on this like bump outside, but then they get another chance versus one of these top 4.
They have Immortals and 100 Thieves, so this will be the end of the first half of the season.
Yeah, and so your game versus 100 Thieves, I think, is a big opportunity to reprove it, because then you would have beaten 2 of the 4. Yep. You lost to Cloud9 and Team Liquid, but you beat Evil Geniuses already, and 100 Thieves have looked really good. Someday on his birthday, I know it's kind of it was an Immortals game. It's kind of a soft game, but
happy birthday.
Yeah, exactly. They took care of business quickly. They were having some fun with it. So I think
so if CLG beat Immortals and lose to 100 Thieves, how do you feel about them?
5-4.
I still feel pretty good, but I probably no longer.
Not challenging for
I probably no have the aspirations of like, okay, they're actually going to be comparable with the top 4 for those world spots, and then I'll be like, my world's competition is the top 4 teams.
I feel like for CLG the last weekend as well, they didn't outdraft their opponents. I felt like a lot of their wins had them outdrafting. This was not like terrible drafts, but like not clearly in their advantage. And they were kind of early game oriented and they made some mistakes, but they still had relatively good, aggressive early game plays that got turned around or came back later. So I actually still like them a lot too, but for the sake of not putting too much faith on CLG, because that is going to doom them, I think they're crap and frauds and going to go 0-11 the rest of the split.
Clip this out.
Yeah.
Cool.
Only clip this.
Do you
Don't
think-
give
only
any of
that.
the context.
Do you think
No
they're going
context.
right back to 10th place?
They're gonna careen towards 10th.
I don't know. TSM feels like they might have a death grip
It's a
on
race.
that.
It's a race to the bottom.
See you there.
No one can be worse than CLG.
We've got some great competing stories in the LCS. We've got top 4 teams trying to go to Worlds, and then everybody racing to the bottom. Who's going to be able to dig Immortals out?
Project Save Immortals.
yeah.
C9 has a pretty easy strength of schedule for this, like for their end of their roster run too. They have TSM and Immortals, so presuming that they would get 2 wins. Their record obviously not super impressive, but they went 0-3, right? With the
They're
Academy
3-1
bot lane
with
and
their
stuff.
starters.
So they're 3-1 with their starters. So even if they do win these next 2 games, they would be 5-4. But that would mean 5-1 with their intended starting lineup, which makes you feel like they're a lot better than their record shows.
I will also say that 2 of their most difficult opponents were in the losses before they got their starters. So
it's hard to know, right? Which makes the second round run really exciting because it's like, would they have lost them anyway with their starters? Hard to say.
Yeah, I think C9, I'm kind of glad they lost that game and Sven had a bad game because... Oh, why are you laughing at that?
That's the way you said it just reminded me of the like perks, like hated smug face or whatever.
No. I like it's less about them and more about community expectation because after that Yuumi game for Sven, the community was like, this team's the best team in the league. They're amazing.
he had
And
a good Lulu game too.
well, the Lulu game was terrible. His Yuumi game was great. His Lulu one was terrible.
Was it?
Yeah.
Were there 2 Lulu games? I swear he had a good one.
Maybe he had a good one last
Or
week.
maybe
The
I'm
Lulu
confusing Champions Queue game. Maybe.
I'll ask Google.
Game, the last Lulu game that he played, which was their loss.
The most recent one.
Yeah,
Okay.
was bad.
I think it was either an earlier one or I'm just confusing a Champs Queue game.
It wasn't like he's like a terrible player. It was just like
He has 2 Lulu games and 1 Yuumi game.
Yeah.
Okay, and the earlier Lulu game, I'm pretty sure was good.
That was the one from 2 weeks ago. Well, I guess 2. This is annoying to talk about. Anyways, his most recent loss was the Lulu game, and it was bad. He died a lot. And
It was against 100 Thieves.
Yeah.
And they won.
I just liked the loss from a like expectation setting because a lot of people were like, this team still needs time, even with the, this bot lane coming in and like the top side still needs to work on things. And after they ripped off 3 in a row, I think the community was like, you're all idiots and wrong, and this is the best team ever. And like that loss is like they still have things to work on, and like don't get too far ahead of yourselves because there's probably some more losses coming. And so like I actually think it's like a good expectation setting loss also because sometimes players read too much on social media and stuff and they like start gassing themselves up, which apparently Team Liquid did after their 3-0 to start the split. Like I just think it's good for the long-term development for this team to lose then. People often talk about this in sports, like an early loss when you're still growing like helps you keep your head down. I don't know. You're smiling at me like you think I'm talking crazy. I feel like this is a normal
I
take.
agree. It's absolutely normal, but I just always find it funny because I think people always say that even when it's like clearly a bad loss and the team's in shambles. They're like fighting each other on stage.
The Team Liquid loss was not a good loss for 100 Thieves.
I know, but it's just funny sometimes, right? Because that's just what it made me think of. That's why I was smiling. Is that sometimes it's like clearly a team is absolutely in a free fall and be like, yeah, we're gonna learn a lot from this loss. What about those other losses you had? How do you guys feel about how Jensen has played so far?
That's one of the reasons why I had Cloud9 with this roster as one of the ones that should have a steep curve because Jensen was coming back from
Steep curve up.
A steep curve up because he was coming back from Vegas, just like me. But his was a longer trip with more partying.
Did he win more than $100?
I didn't win any. So I never said that I won any. Travis apparently said that he won big. And regardless, he's coming back from a big break from League. And anytime you take a big break from League, like it feels so rusty coming back. And so I was thinking that was going to be a long time just personally for him to rebuild up to his Worlds form, but then plus they had all the visas and all. Anyways, getting everybody together and practice and stuff. So I have been disappointed in some of the games. Some of the games have been really good from him, but obviously, there's been some real big bloopers that have been obvious. So to me, that's kind of expected for this Cloud9, and it's part of their journey, I think, to the top.
I'm relatively happy with him on that curve that you're talking about because his laning looks mostly there. I mean, I know people are going to point out to a couple like of the individual.
His first Yone game.
Yeah, like people are going to point to that and be like, look.
But then he had a good one.
Then he had a good one. And overall, I was like, doing a deeper dive into stats, and like he's kind of the same laning player that he was back in the day, where it's like low jungle proximity, but up in farm, up in 4%, kind of pushing the other person and getting a lot of like the other team's jungle difference. Like the other team comes to him and he just kind of survives the ganks, and he gets camped a little bit while he's pressuring and building a CS lead. What's missing, I think, right now from his game is like the late game 1v9 carry potential, because like at his peak, he was like, I'm Orianna and I'm going to win the game for us at some point.
Yeah,
and I don't think he's doing that right now. Not like C9 needs him to, but I think that's...
They kind of need him to.
They will need him to. they will later on the season. So that's what I'm still waiting to see, is some more of like the individual outplays, but more or less I think he's on a good trajectory.
Yeah. Seems like it's been going pretty well. Well, I guess that'll do it for this episode.
No, it won't do it for this episode. Our producer said if we can get any more, and I got more to talk about. FlyQuest, baby. We talked about CLG as like the team that's like in your who's your top 5.
Their first game is a good game. Their first game this week is
versus Hundo Thundo.
Yeah, 100 Thieves also. So 100 Thieves actually have some good expectation settings for the other like middle teams.
Those two are the teams that are tied right now.
Yeah,
for fourth.
So 100 Thieves are gonna be the judgment for both FlyQuest and for CLG.
You shall not pass.
Are you super hyped for FlyQuest in that matchup, or
even if they lose, I'm just like, I'm a FlyQuest believer. I put them 5th in my power rankings at the start of the split, and they have largely come through. And it was them who crapped on C9 in that most recent loss, where like C9 just like never had a foothold in that game. And I feel like FlyQuest, Afro's been playing really well. Johnson's Twitch has been cool. Decoy and Jose have largely picked up. Philip came in, was a bit of a liability in lane, but has been good outside of lane. And like, I like this team. I think that they are the 5th place team in the league. And while they might drop the game to 100 Thieves, I think...
Nice. We get me and Mark can be FlyQuest. I'll be CLG. Who's your 5th place team? We can all fight each other.
You can pick one of ours too, make us right if you agree with one of us.
Yeah, or make it double wrong.
Yeah, pick TSM still.
It gets hard, man, because TSM I think is for sure out of there. Yeah. I have to pick a 5th team.
You get to pick a 5th team.
Yeah.
Congratulations. You're welcome.
I'm more on CLG side.
Let's go!
I think I'm more on the CLG side.
I mean, I also believe in CLG for what's worth. I think they're like, I think they're 5th, 6th in the league.
Yeah.
But I actually really like FlyQuest right now. Yeah,
FlyQuest has been good. Like they've impressed me. I'm pretty pleased with how Philip has played, but like his lane has been bad, right? Like he's I was just looking at the lane stats. I think he's negative 7.1 CSD at 10. Second worst is -4, right? So like he's significantly behind second worst as far as that. To be fair, there were some games where like he got camped pretty hard, and like that's part of it. But I didn't expect his lane to be good, and it hasn't been great. But I will say that like outside of lane, he's been pretty solid. I remember there was like a Jace game where I think it was maybe against
the C9 game. He solo killed Jensen.
Yeah, like, and he got dove early in that game, got put down, and then just like didn't die for the rest of the game. At least the one I'm thinking of. I can't remember if it was the C9 one or not. But he's had some good aggressive moves. He's played side lanes like fine without getting picked on. So like there's a lot of things about his game that I think are really positive for like, you know, another young guy coming up out of academy. So I'm pretty excited to see how he can develop. Like if he could improve his laning phase, he could actually have a pretty bright future, I think, in the LCS.
Yeah, I'm hot on this team. I think it's Fly.
Well, that's going to wrap it up for us. My laptop is out of battery, so take it away with one of you.
What, you don't know? Oh, you do the outro.
I do the outro.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This episode obviously was a little bit different because we were on the 1 week break. We'll be back to talking more about the teams after this coming weekend, as we normally do. But continue to send those questions in. You can hashtag the dive LOL on Twitter. You can send us to an Anchor.fm. Thanks for everyone who sent those questions in this week. Remember, if you're watching us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode of the dive. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're on Anchor.fm.
We're at your
We're everywhere.
House. We're
in Vegas. We're winning big. We're up $100. LCS returns Saturday with 100 Thieves versus FlyQuest, 1:30 p.m. PST. I'll be there. You better be too.